Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session, a session that we're going to be looking at 5 workplace mental health trends for 2021. This is the first one of the year. We do these webinars every last Wednesday of the month. And yeah, it's just our way of kind of giving you guys some value, especially in these difficult, uncertain times. Can we just get a quick little test? Can you just let us know in the chat box if you can hear me okay? Zoe, just want to give like a hello?
Hi guys, can you hear me too?
I know there's a little bit of, I don't know if it's my connection, but it all seems to be okay. Okay, everyone can hear us, which is good, which is the main thing.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you guys for joining. We've got sort of more people joining now, about sort of 32 people. It's kind of creeping up 35. So thank you for taking the time out of, I'm sure, your busy schedule to kind of join us in today's session. So today, what we're going to be looking at is obviously looking back at 2020, the data that we're seeing as an organization, Everymind at Work, at the same time looking at sort of the research of what's kind of been happening within this space. And then we're going to be looking at sort of 5 trends to focus on as a business to improve workplace mental health. This session is obviously for HR professionals, business leaders, or simply individuals passionate to make change within the organization. Hopefully this is going to be valuable and you're going to take away some strategy or some sort of takeaways in terms of sort of moving forward and implementing this into your business as well. So just as a little who are we, as we always do, and I'm sure there's some new faces here as well. I'm Paul, the founder of everymindatwork.com. I'm also a passionate mental health campaigner. I share my own story, my own journey of mental health, trying to help others that might be sort of suffering in silence. And this is a passion-driven business, but I really enjoy these sessions as well. And then I'm joined by Zoe. Do you want to give you a little spiel?
Hi guys, I'm Zoe. I'm the head of HR at Everymind at Work, and yeah, passionate very much so too about mental well-being. And as Paul said, we've got lots of passion in the team. Everybody's got their own story, and so it's just nice to be a part of yeah, tech for good and everything else we do.
Nice. Also, guys, let's just start by just sort of asking how you are as well. Do you just want to put in the chat box how has your week been on a scale of 1 to 10? So 10 is that it's the most amazing week ever, and 1 is that, yeah, it's not been very good. So give us on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your week been? We've got 5s coming in, we've got a 3, we've got a 4, we've got a 3, we've got a 7, another 7, a 4, a 6, 7, Groundhog Day. Is it 2022?
Yeah.
Is it 2022?
Oh.
About 4. 5, 4. So I think there's a real mixture there, and I'm sure as we always say here, you know, that 4 can turn into a 7 this afternoon, or that 7 can turn into a 4 this afternoon as well. You know, mental health is that roller coaster, and hopefully this session is kind of going to help you in a way of relieving that overwhelm of how do you support all of your employees when you're a 4 yourself, right? And I think that's kind of what we're trying to aim in today as well. So can any of you relate to this? I thought I'd put this in here today. Does anyone else feel troubled by the fact that the name of next year is literally 2021? I'm sure lots of you are feeling this already. The fact that last year was a very difficult, overwhelming year, and for a lot of us, we believed the year, was better than us. It took us hold of us, and we didn't really know what to do. We were reactive, and then coming into 2021, we all thought it would be a lot brighter, and it hasn't started that way. Let's be honest. I'm exhausted. Are you exhausted, Zoe, of this lockdown this time?
Yeah. I think, what is it, 0.3 or whatever? It's yeah, and I think it's been a time for reflecting on whether things are ever going to go back to normal, isn't it? I think, which is yeah, which can be quite a difficult thought, and what we have to do to fit in with all of that. So yeah, I think holidays as well. Like we were thinking, oh, maybe we can book holidays and get a bit of normality back in 2021, but I've got a horrible feeling that it might be 22. Yeah, and I love my holidays. Yeah. That's not good.
Yeah, and I think that's the difficult thing. I think we all strive, we all thrive off freedom, right? And I feel like we don't have that at the moment, and it's definitely something that's having a massive impact on everyone overall. So I think on that, guys, if you are a 4 today, if you have been struggling with this lockdown, then hopefully like this beginning bit has shown you that you're definitely not alone. There's so many people feeling the same way that you are, and of course, with mental health, there's that stigma associated with it, but hopefully straight away you've seen that you're definitely not alone, and there's obviously a community of people out there that are kind of feeling the same way that you're feeling as well. So in terms of sort of 2020, it's that mental health was catapulted into top priority for leaders across the world. There's definitely been a rise of depression, stress, anxiety, loneliness and isolation has definitely caused a lot of mental health challenges for individuals as well. And at the same time, we've obviously had to adapt to a new way of living, remote working, dealing with sort of the pressures of homeschooling and, potentially people in our family, being unwell. There's lots that we've had to face, and companies like Deloitte have predicted that the fallout from COVID will last for a few years. And personally, from the work that we're doing, we work with hundreds, 100+ businesses in this kind of, area, trying to help them improve mental health within their business. My concern is very much like when stuff starts to move back, because, we're almost used to how we are working now. I used to wear a shirt, now I wear a hoodie. I apologize for that, guys, but I'm just so used to it now of just getting up and working here every day. But I think there's going to be challenges, as this points out, as we slowly start to move back to whatever we decide to call normal. And there's definitely been, experiences of routines, ways of working changing, isolation, that social distancing, making us feel disconnected from our organization and our colleagues. Homeschooling, as we said, juggling that, COVID sickness, extreme fatigue, etc. Zoe, have you obviously sort of seen the impact that this is having on employees as well?
Yeah, I think homeschooling as well has been tremendously difficult. I mean, I personally haven't got children, so I can't speak from experience, but I've got lots of friends who have, and things like that I think have just been so difficult, and all this guilt around, I've heard some of my friends saying, I'm a rubbish mum and I'm rubbish at my job at the moment, and there's so much like guilt and almost like self-shaming around, sort of not doing anything really well because they've got to juggle so many priorities. And that's one of the things that's really sort of hit home to me around and just the length of time that it's gone on for as well. It wasn't just a quick sort of snapshot, was it? It's been going on for months. And, if we're to believe what we're hearing in the media, that, the schools might not be open again until after Easter, which is a number of months away. So, I think that's massive for people to deal with, to try and juggle all of that, and on top of, as we said, possibly having relatives that are sick or need caring for, and everything changing. It's been a huge amount of things to deal with all at once, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And will continue to do so, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like that analogy of everyone's kind of running this marathon and you're kind of coming up to like mile 24, mile 25, and then someone goes, actually, we're going to push the finish line like another 10 miles that way.
Yeah.
And you're exhausted, and then you're like, oh, I've got to try and slug this out another 10 miles. And, and it's difficult to do. But, definitely, my wife's homeschooling my two boys, and, she almost has this, firstly, like, oh, we're going to plan a holiday because we just need some form of like excitement to kind of look forward to. But then secondly, at least we're doing this until like mid-February or whenever it is. But now there's kind of rumors of that's going to be extended again. It's definitely like really, really draining and exhausting, and it takes a lot out of people. So, I think if we're all saying that there's definitely been struggles that we've experienced, then, everyone within your organization, as I'm sure, had different sets of problems, but at the same time, they're all sort of struggling as well. So it's about how do we equip them with that. And again, like we say, we're going to be highlighting those kind of 5 trends. In terms of how that manifests within the kind of workplace, poor, lower employee engagement, people kind of disconnecting themselves from work and engagement within work. We do a lot of work, as we say, with organizations, and I think those we don't have that regular check-ins. We almost have to force those regular check-ins. If me and Zoe are in the office, I walk past Zoe on my way to go and get a coffee, and I say, how was your evening last night, Zoe? And then we have that casual check-in. I don't email Zoe and say, hey Zoe, do you want a quick 1-minute chat about your evening last night? That doesn't happen as we're all working remotely. So there's that lack of engagement that we almost need to focus on. Absenteeism, levels likely to increase. There was a recent stat that Emily from our team shared that showed the kind of rise. The number one cause of people being off work was obviously due to mental health, and it was actually quite a staggering graph, wasn't it, Zoe, in terms of how much it was in comparison to
Mm.
others. You know, productivity, employee turnover, and then of course, you know, slower business growth. And I do. This is one of my concerns as well, and I'm sure some of you maybe share a similar concern. That slower business growth, me with my sort of business commercial hat on now, when we're back in the office, do they want employees firing? Like, do we want, like,
Yeah.
come on, we need to make that back. We need to kind of catch up here. And how much stress is that going to put on to employees as well? So we really wanted to kind of highlight these 5 workplace wellbeing trends for 2021. And we'll get Zoe to do the first one, and we'll kind of open up the comments as well. If you do want to share any of what we're talking about, anything that might relate to your business or anything that you've tried, you know, feel free to just put it in the chat box as well. But really, like we've said, research when it comes to it suggests that mental health and well-being needs to be priority in order to safeguard the health of employees, provide a more proactive, preventative approach to health and well-being within the workplace. And, you know, that's really our focus, that proactive, preventative approach. But these are some of the trends that we've seen from the data that we get from obviously our platform and the work that we're doing, but also equally from everyone else as well. Andrea, I'll put my email at the end. Drop me an email and I'll share the graph with you. If anyone else wants to see that graph, it's a really, really good graph to maybe use to get maybe some senior buy-in as well, Zoe. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it was quite stark, wasn't it?
So let's kick off with trend 1, Zoe. Do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think we've talked a lot about this, haven't we? Creating awareness and reducing sort of stigma. And I think, unfortunately, that stigma definitely still exists within companies. I mean, we talk about having an open and honest culture and about sort of embracing those conversations. But I think, unfortunately, you know, when you do the research, when you speak to individuals, it still exists in the workplace. So I think that real focus on education and focus on what you're going to do differently. And I think it's not just about training. You know, yes, you could put all leaders through training, and that's great, and that serves a purpose. But I think they've got, you know, post training, they've got to have the confidence to be able to, you know, have conversations. And for me, it's, you know, it's linked into sort of their role as a coach as well. Again, you know, we've all seen managers, leaders that perhaps, you know, have been over promoted. They were good technically, but they were promoted into a managerial position, but really aren't equipped as a leader to have those great conversations, to, you know, to manage people, to sort of show that emotional intelligence and be able to open up. So I think an awful lot of work needs to be done in that awareness education space. I think on the third point, we've you know, something that we've promoted is the use of things like mental health first aiders. And again, it's one piece of the jigsaw, isn't it? It's not going to be a silver bullet, but I think if you've got people on the ground trained and comfortable having those conversations, because I think a lot of it is about confidence and being comfortable. And it's all very well us sort of saying, well, as a leader you should do X, Y, and Z, and as a leader that, you know, they're your teams, so you should have spotted that, or you should have dealt with it, or you should have provided that support. But if we're not equipping them to have those conversations, it's probably unfair to expect them to do that. You know, they're not doctors, they're not sort of therapists, and it's quite a complex and serious topic. So I think we need to almost, you know, give it the airtime and the quality training and the coaching, or whatever we need to do. We need to give that the airtime that it needs, not just have an expectation that they'll be able to do it. And I think something Paul's mentioned quite a lot is leaders sharing their own experiences. You know, we've talked about it in the app, how powerful a video of one of your managers, one of your leaders, you know, talking about the experiences that they've been through. I've noticed a couple of articles recently where CEOs of quite large organizations have stepped down and have been really vocal about why they've stepped down, and it was to do with mental health and the fact that they didn't want to exacerbate that anymore, and they just felt that environment, that corporate environment that they were in, was having a detrimental effect on their health. And they sort of had an outpouring of messages around, you know, almost like, you know, kudos for standing up and saying that, because it takes a lot of bravery to do that. And it's not going to happen overnight. You know, creating a different culture is really, really difficult, and you'll know as HR professionals that it doesn't happen overnight. You know, it means linking into your values as a company. You know, what are your core values? You know, if they've been launched and embedded properly, that they should be woven through everything that you do. And I think for me, that sort of open honesty around mental health issues and having those supportive conversations, it links into, you know, your values as a company, your culture, and it's important that leaders sort of, you know, walk the walk and talk the talk, as it were, and we don't just play lip service to it. You know, I think that sort of compassionate leadership, that emotional intelligence, that should try and come to the fore in, you know, check-ins and any sort of, you know, performance management processes that you're having, and to make sure that behavioural side is captured as well, because we all know that, you know, you have your objectives, etc., and a lot of it you're looking at, well, what needs to be achieved, but also how does it need to be achieved, and that how is so important. And for me, that links into the, you know, the real compassionate leadership, and how you are treated by your leaders, and whether or not you feel as though you can approach them and you can have that conversation. So there's quite a lot of work that probably needs to be addressed there, but I think taking the steps of focusing on that education and creating that sort of culture of openness is a good step in the right direction, and then you just build on it. Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And there's some comments coming in that kind of sort of, you know, almost in a way emphasize what Zoe's saying, you know, in terms of being human's essential at this time. I think someone said, you know, managers are not experts nor fonts of advice. They need to sort of know that this is not their role, it's to listen, and you know, again, just focusing on the kind of human element behind it as well. And Susan's also said, as a manager, there's a fear sometimes to having the conversation. Employees can find it difficult to be honest and accept help. So yeah, I mean, I've just kind of jotted down a couple of, like, you know, what Zoe said. You know, I think education is so key, because I talk about this in my own journey. You know, my experience of mental health was mental illness, right? Which was, I don't have to worry about that, because my perception of mental illness was straitjackets, padded cells, and personalities that, you know, was portrayed in the media of something that didn't look like me and my family and my how I was growing up. So I never considered it. But then obviously, you know, when I did experience, you know, mental health challenges myself, and obviously, you know, losing my dad to suicide, it was hold on, this is a different perspective. Like, this is something that, like, we should all be looking at. And I think when it comes to that generation sort of, you know, approach to mental health, education is so key, because if you say to your managers, we're going to talk about mental health, they're going to be like, oh, no, that's mental illness. I don't want to go there. You know, that's nothing to do with me. But actually, if we sort of look at it in resilience and emotional intelligence and, you know, compassion, and giving them the basic kind of understanding and tools to ask, listen, signpost, then, you know, that education changes their perspective and allows them to approach it in a different way. And I think, as you said, Zoe, that vulnerability is really key. You know, bringing your whole self to work, and someone just standing up and saying, this is my story, and, you know, it basically tackles that stigma, you know, pretty immediately. Because while everyone's sort of there suffering in silence, feeling like they're the only one going through what they're going through because no one in the business is talking about it, and now you've got this person saying, hold on, I'm there, like, I've been there, this is how I'm feeling, now I feel less alone, so as an employee I'm now going to share. And I think that's really key in what sort of Susan said. It's about empowering every employee to talk about it as well. So yeah, education is so key, guys, and, you know, something to definitely think about. Trend 2, I'm just cautious of time, and I know we've got a few to go through. Trend 2, a different, more holistic approach to wellness benefits. So in terms of, like, employers needing to rethink their benefit offering to provide a more engaging selection. So what we're sort of aiming at, sort of, you know, getting you guys to sort of look at here is just shifting away from the what and more focused on the why. So typically what I mean by that is the what is we've got an employee assistance program. We do something for Mental Health Awareness Week. We've got mental health first aiders. Why do you do all of that? Oh, because we should, you know, or because, you know, we've just done it. So really, when you're looking at that kind of more holistic approach, it's kind of like focusing on those preventative sort of solutions as well. I think data is key, asking what employees want, asking what's important to them, looking at the benefits and creating this more holistic approach. We need to move away from that one size fits all approach of we have this, so everyone's going to be okay with it. Mental health is so individual, so you have to create more of a holistic approach to wellness overall as well. And again, I'm sure you've got benefits that are already in the business, and maybe it's a benefit that you pay for, and maybe it's a benefit that the engagement levels are low. Start looking at that and start addressing that, and start looking at sort of different solutions that can help with engagement and productivity and general well-being during these times. And again, those previous benefits like an on-site gym or coffee shop or free fruit, which seemed to be the answer to mental health for the last couple of years. We need to consider that. Is that worth us doing that anymore? Or can we take that budget and spend that more wisely? And can we take that budget and spend it on a 12-month or 24-month strategy where we know that this is what's going to be happening to try and sort of move the needle when it comes to mental health in the business as well. Anything to add to that, Zoe?
No, I just sort of echo that. I think that all the research suggests that we are going to have a massive sort of shift in the benefits that are being offered. I think in the past, as sort of HR professionals, we look at our budget and we look at what types of things is the research and other company data showing us that we should be providing. But a lot of the time, we don't necessarily go out and really ask what would benefit. I remember talking to one leader once that was very chuffed that they'd rolled out a life assurance program, but behind the scenes, a lot of the employees who were very young and didn't have children were sort of saying, well, yeah, that's fine, but actually at our age, that's not a benefit that we see as valuable, and actually it's only beneficial, when we die. So great type of thing, and so there was a lot of comments around, wouldn't it have been better to offer X, Y, and Z? So I think if you can have more of a flexible benefit approach, and sort of budget permitting, that can be split up, and you can work with certain brokers to get some good deals there. I think what's important to people will become so more prevalent in that wellness space, and I think that will definitely link into the whole EAP side. Do people want more of that crisis support, or are they looking for more of the preventative side? Would they benefit from things that would be deemed more preventative than perhaps having, I don't know, a crisis helpline or counselling? But I think you're only going to get that sort of, I guess, rich data if you if you speak to them, or you have surveys or whatever it is that you're going to do. But I just think that mix, that sort of suite of products, is likely to change quite drastically as the years go on, and people just want different things.
Yeah, it's again, it's like, our tagline is, taking the guesswork out of workplace mental health, because everything that we do is very much data driven. Because again, feel free to go and run a mindfulness session, or do yoga, or get a free fruit bowl, or do an engagement survey, or launch an EAP, whatever it is. But how do you know that is what your employees want, as Zoe said? And equally, it differs for every business, it differs for every industry. If you're in manufacturing, it's completely different if you're dealing with people working in a tech organization, and the kind of evidence-based interventions within those sort of businesses are very different. So it's about using that data to your disposal, and that's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, and it's going to save you resources. So don't just guess. Try and definitely sort of look at it in a more holistic way, and get as much data as you possibly can as well. Zoe, trend-free technology.
Yeah, and this sort of, I suppose this sort of dovetails quite nicely into this, because I was just going to sort of say, with home working becoming so prevalent, and possibly remaining on a more permanent basis. I mean, I think from all the conversations and data that I'm seeing, I think companies are probably going to try and adopt more of a hybrid approach. We're getting really sort of mixed feedback around, yes, some people are dying to get back in the office because being stuck at home is really affecting their mental health, whereas others prefer to be at home because it fits in with their lifestyle. It means they can sort of support children or school hours or that type of thing. So I really do think that hybrid approach is probably going to be here to stay, and from surveys and things that I've seen is the one that seems to be people's preference. But I think with that in mind, you know, if you've possibly got 50% of your workplace working from home, then whether we like it or not, technology is going to become more prevalent, isn't it, as that sort of home working evolves. We've seen the sort of virtual care coming more and more into the forefront around things like online counselling, you know, virtual GP appointments, or all the different therapeutic services that you see, you know, either on your phone or online. I think the use of these digital platforms will become more and more important in things like tracking mood and forecasting. You know, what do we think our employees are going to need more support with? I think anything that sort of encompasses, you know, mood tracking or wellbeing surveys or anything like that is sort of put together in an anonymous way, be that, you know, on an online platform, on a phone, whatever it is. I think it's going to give tangible data, isn't it? And I think although our gut feel tells us it's the right thing to do, you know, you can bet that you've got your FDs or whoever saying, well, you know, what's going to be my return on this investment? You know, how can you prove it's actually working? But I think those sort of tracking mechanisms, all that data and analytics that can be produced from digital platforms, I think it'll become more and more important. And I'm seeing a lot of things around, you know, HR using technology in a more savvy way, and what can we do to really use that data. I think the more people that are working at home, the combination of these sort of, I guess, proactive interventions that might have the use of digital platforms will probably become more commonplace. I mean, they might be integrated with, you know, EAP type crisis elements, and I think that's for everybody to work out, you know, what's the best fit for their company. It might be that you have a different sort of demographic within your workforce. It might be, I know I've had experience of employees saying to me, you know, some of my team don't even have a smartphone. So again, you've got to have one eye on, is this going to be fit for purpose for everyone? I think, you know, that leads into the whole sort of, I guess, diversity and inclusion point, which we've got within here as well, that you've got to be mindful that it's not a one size fits all. And the more interventions, the more solutions that you can provide that fit personally with those individuals and fit different demographics and different sort of backgrounds and cultural preferences, I think the better, really. Yeah, that's a good point there, Neil, about becoming surveyed out. I guess it's a difficult one, isn't it? That if you've got, you know, a huge proportion of your people at home, and possibly you've got a workforce of hundreds or even thousands, it's difficult to collect that data. But yeah, I totally agree. And I think what I found in the past as well is that if you don't do something, you know, visible with it, then employees can be very much, well, we told you this 6 months ago, what have you done about it? So you need to be able to have, you know, the mechanisms in place to act on that, or you'll definitely get complaints around, what's the point of filling this in because you didn't even do anything with my feedback. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think on that point as well, no, it's a really good point. And again, you know, for me, it's about pulling data from as many places as you possibly can, you know. So, you know, obviously our app is very focused on data, but it's kind of the way that we generate that data is anonymized. It's not personally identifiable. It's done through, you know, a more organic way of looking at the data. So kind of, what are people searching for? You know, overall, is there a rise in people saying that they're potentially struggling with anxiety? And we're looking at sort of, you know, that way of gathering data, a more organic way than me sending you like a really long engagement survey. And then equally, you know, you can use a tool like mentimeter.com. You know, we use that for our webinars and sessions, which allows you to kind of like ask some anonymized questions as you're presenting. And again, another way of gathering data. And I think it's, you know, as you've said, Neil, it's not like, here's another survey, here's another survey, here's another survey, because we all know that people can be quite sort of, you know, I'm just going to say yes to every question here. So it's about trying to pull that data from as many places as possible. We've also got a question from Susan, actually. I think on the last one, we're struggling to replace what we did face-to-face to virtual. Open to any ideas to support well-being. You know, I think it's difficult, but the joys about virtual is, you know, there's less cost involved, there's less logistics to get something going, and you can test more. I would, you know, if you're struggling, you might have to elaborate on that, Susan. Is it like face-to-face one-on-ones, or is it like a face-to-face kind of like overall team discussion around well-being? Because again, you know, you can embed, as lots of companies are doing, you know, their managers are checking in with, you know, their team, and one question that they're asking is like, you know, how are you feeling now? Like right now, today, scale of 1 to 10, make it really simple for them. That's a simple tip. If I say to you, how are you? You kind of like combine the last year and you say, I'm not very good, or you say, I'm fine. It's either one of them. But if I say, you know, how are you feeling like this week out of 1 to 10, you kind of get a better understanding, and again, embedding that in. And I think just embedding it into your kind of like weekly calls or monthly calls, Susan, is a really good way of doing that. Yeah, but again, you know, technology, we might be biased on that, but you know, again, being a tech company that focuses on mental health, I think, yes, I can stand here and say, you know, we're an app, we're a digital platform where we focus on tech for good, but is it going to replace everything in terms of face-to-face interventions? No. Like, you know, there's no way that it's going to replace it, but can it complement it? 100%. Can it potentially create a bit more of an accessible sort of, you know, way of supporting, you know, staff? You know, 100%. So I think it's definitely sort of looking at that. Susan just says the informal, you mentioned coffee in the canteen. So yeah, I would just kind of like embed that into manager check-ins. Equally, if you want to find out a little bit more about that, Susan, we're sending out some ideas and advice about tea and talks for Time to Talk Day. So just like a simple graphic of this is how you run a tea and talk, this is how you do it, kind of embedding that in as well. So just a really, really kind of simple way of doing so. Julia says, I do workplace wellbeing programs for the council. We've adapted all the face-to-face workshops to bring online an opportunity for more people to attend to. Andrea, you might just want to restart, although you won't be able to hear that because you've lost sound. Tip number 4, or trend number 4, I think she's restarted. A greater focus on diversity, equality, and inclusion. So in a recent survey, 55% of respondents said their company had policies which promoted DEI, which highlights obviously a problem. 55% isn't a huge amount. Again, everyone sort of responds differently to interventions and trainings. This should be considered. And again, I think this is really focused on what we was talking about a minute ago. You know, embedding our app, you know, may be extremely beneficial for 20% of your employees or 30% of your employees. And it's a tool now that they've got. But, you know, again, I'll be the first to say, you know, it's not going to reach 100% of your employees. Everyone's so different. Equally, we've got meditations on the app. We've got longer videos of people sharing their personal experience, or articles, or breathing exercises. And again, you know, some people are going to want to sit and watch a long story about someone sharing their own journey of mental health, but others, they haven't got the time for that. They just want a quick breathing exercise before they start a meeting. So again, it's, you know, it's so individual when we're looking at mental health. And again, we need to focus on that as part of our sort of overall strategy. Again, if we launch something and we say, this is the solution, we've now got mental health first aiders in the business, that is going to change culture. You know, from my experience, it's not, you know, it's just another sort of intervention within the business. But again, we need to think about, again, a kind of greater focus on including everyone as possible. Ensure any interventions are capturing differences in learning styles, you know, kind of looking at the support levels required. Again, I've just come off a call with a potential sort of client who's looking for some resilience training for managers. And again, you know, they said there's probably 20 of them that just want a 2.5-hour Zoom workshop, right? That's how they work. Schedule it in their diary. They'll show up. They'll sit there for 2.5 hours and they're done. Other people actually want to sort of do it as like an e-learning platform. So they want to do it in their own time, at the weekends, in the evenings, and they want to kind of learn it that way. And again, it's like looking at different ways of educating employees and supporting employees as well. And again, like, you know, some employees may prefer that lighter preventative route, mindfulness. Others might require counseling. You know, they might require therapy. They might require more of a sort of, you know, I guess, reactive approach, depending on where they are in their journey as well. So it's about, again, looking at this as, I wish there was a one-size-fits-all approach. I wish there was a cookie cutter strategy that me and Zoe could share with you guys and everything will be fine, right? But, you know, if that existed, then my life would be very different. I'm sure everyone else's lives would be very different. So there is no one-size-fits-all approach. So we have to really consider how individual mental health is and build that into your strategy as well.
I think that's going to get bigger and bigger, isn't it? I mean, we've all seen the shocking reports about, you know, Black Lives Matter and the protests and all of this. You know, you can link so much into it around, you know, not being included or not. And we've all heard about, you know, unconscious bias and interviewing and that types of things. And we know the more obvious things, but I think, you know, a lot of the research is suggesting that your attraction strategy, your retention strategy, you know, so much of that is linked into sort of DEI elements now. And I think more as well as sort of well-being being on top of you know, the top of that list, the DEI elements are there as well, and how you attract and retain your employees, and how you do appreciate, you know, that whether or not you are capturing either their ethnicity or cultural differences or that type of things. It's all going to become even more prevalent as these aspects, you know, come to the fore in well, it's in the media and it's everywhere, isn't it? But it just makes makes you realize that as an employer, this could be directly linked into, you know, your attraction strategy and whether people actually feel part of your culture and it is a supportive culture that they'd want to stay within. So I don't think you can really, you know, decouple the two. I think they do go hand in hand.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, when we're looking at sort of diversity, it's about embedding personal experience and, again, education, I believe, because, you know, I can stand and share my story of losing my dad to suicide and how that impacted me. Now, that can have a real impact on some people that might have been through a similar experience. But equally, if you've not been through that experience, you can kind of see it compassionately and understand it and maybe see it in a different way. And I've recently been involved in various different panels where we've also been discussing, you know, racism and diversity inclusion in the workplace. And again, you know, it's something that the way that I've experienced life, I haven't had to consider it much, right? And you hear someone's story and I'm like, I get it. Like, I get how, I get it now. Like, now I'm seeing it in a completely different way. And again, you know, that's a key focus of everything that we do within our business. It's let's get people sharing stories, whether it's, again, you know, OCD. Like, my perception of OCD was you're clean because that's what we were perceived in the media. But now I've got many people that share their story of OCD and I'm like, wow, like I don't get it because I don't suffer from it, but I can show compassion to it. And I can see it completely differently now. And that's going to change the way that, as Zoe says, I then approach it and I then talk about it as well. So I think as part of this section, you know, personal experience is kind of really, really key as well. And then trend 5, Zoe, do you just want to finish up the last one?
Yeah, and I think we've talked about resilience in the past, haven't we? But I think, you know, you can have all the solutions and all the, you know, the training and the culture, and you can have all of that in place and really work on it. But I think, you know, building a resilient workforce and giving people, you know, more personal sort of skills and tools to help cope is going to be more and more important. I think, you know, we're going to be continuing to navigate through all this adversity and challenges, and our ways of working are probably going to change enormously over the next 12 months. And I think, you know, having that resilience within your workforce can only help. And it's just sort of an extra element within the toolbox. I think providing that training or providing that support in whatever sort of medium that is, and not just for leaders as well, for everyone. I think it's something that we all, you know, if we are resilient and we can sort of, you know, bounce back from adversity or bounce back more easily from adversity, you know, have coping mechanisms for those challenges. And I think all of that, you know, if it becomes the norm to talk about it, going back to the first point around that sort of awareness and reducing the stigma, you know, if we are talking about well-being within that check-in process, and we are really, you know, delving into our employees, you know, being truly resilient, or are they putting on a brave face? Are they putting on the mask that we've often talked about, or are they really coping? And I think you can only get to the bottom of that if you have, you know, great conversations and again, but leaders are equipped to have those conversations and really spot the signs, and again have things within their toolbox to be able to suggest those solutions. And I think considering how your L&D offering is going to operate going forward, and we mentioned before around, it is difficult virtually, but I think given again the possible hybrid approach, we are going to have to think about how do we land things virtually, and if we normally do something face to face and have interactive exercises for example, how can we replicate that as near as possible online, so that people still get the best experience and still get the information and the help and support that they need. But I think that resilience hopefully is classed as a more preventative method as well of support. If people feel more resilient, if they feel as though they can cope with challenges, cope with knockbacks, cope with adversity, etc., then hopefully they don't get to that sort of more crisis point, as we call it, because everything has gotten on top of them and they've not had the coping strategies to put in place, whatever they might be. And then unfortunately you get to that crisis point. So I think that resilience for me comes, as soon as possible, so that you don't get to that point. But yeah, it's difficult virtually, and I think as we've all experienced over this past year, virtual training, virtual sort of check-ins and everything, it can't replace that sort of water cooler chat, as we said before. So you can only do your best to try and to land those interventions and get those solutions out there. But it's difficult, isn't it? It's a challenge to get the balance right.
Yeah, and one thing I love about, again, there's a big emphasis on resilience at the moment, and one thing I do love about resilience is the word. Like all resilience is to me is in a way like us openly talking about mental health strategies and being able to deal with the adversity that we've faced and being able to embrace vulnerability. And like Linda says, there's some amazing TED Talks on resilience as well. And if you're trying to engage an organization, or if you're trying to engage employees that see mental health as like this thing that they don't want to discuss, if you say we're doing a session on mental health, you're only going to attract a cohort of people that might be willing to join that session. But if you say we're going to do a session about resilience and building your resilience, it's a bit more like, oh yeah, I want to find out more about that. But it's pretty much the same, thing, kind of, sugar coated. So lots of organizations are using resilience workshops as a way of, again, equipping their employees with the tools. And as Zoe said, the strategy that we look at are like these 3 pillars. If you imagine like a funnel and you've got 1,000 employees and you focus on the promote stage, which is very much awareness, stigma, making employees feel safe to talk about mental health within their business. Then you look at the next stage, which is provide. It's more about, as an employer, can you provide them with the tools, the proactive tools to be able to manage mental health themselves, right? And then you've got the protect, which is if they are in crisis, as a business, are you equipped to provide them with that support that they might need? And I think as an employer, you can have the most amazing strategy, every intervention under the sun, like everything, and still people will reach that final point. They'll still be in crisis because mental health is complex. There's so many external factors as well. But, I think if you as an employer can provide them with the tools potentially to manage it themselves, I think it's a really, really big beneficial thing that you can do for the business as well. Yeah. Linda says it's good to let the younger generation use their phone to look at TED Talks on YouTube. I would think they learn better this way, 100%. So in terms of those 5 sort of trends, I'm going to recap on them in a minute. But one thing I did want to kind of put out there is we are running some resilience workshops for businesses at the moment. So they typically work, again, virtually. We are obviously potentially we do them in person, but obviously with everything going on right now, it's not exactly applicable. But again, the virtual reality of it means that we can attract more people into the session. They're a little bit more flexible. They're also a little bit more affordable. But these resilience sessions are typically targeted. Again, you can have your senior managers, or you can obviously have the whole workforce as well. And we also have an e-learning platform focused on resilience as well. That might be something that you're interested in too. So again, our kind of focus as a business is being that partner to you, taking the guesswork out of it. We have the app, we have a digital solution, we have insights and data, but really it's about working with you in a 12-month period and being able to provide you some support that you might need as a business. And like I say, there's various ways that we do that, but kind of wanted to put that in there. If you are looking for some resilience training, you know, for your senior managers, or resilience sort of workshops for the whole business, then definitely reach out and we'll be able to send you a little bit more information about that. My email is there, paul@everymind@work.com. I also put it in the chat box earlier, so just drop me an email, paul@everymind@work.com, if you want to find out more about the resilience training or about the app or any of the sort of solutions that we can help you with to basically take mental health off your plate as much as you want us to take it off your plate. You know, it's probably one small part of your job responsibility, but equally it's a massive, you know, priority now within the business. So we're kind of there to kind of help you along the way if you need us to. So to recap, Zoe, should we take one each? You know, the first one, whatever sort of 2021 throws at us next, we know with certainty that, you know, well-being will feature prominently on our to-do list. It's going to be a priority, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And remember, it's not a one size fits all. I think we've got to be open-minded to having a sort of a suite of different interventions and solutions, and making sure that that there is something there for everyone, really.
And then also, you know, we are going to send a replay out of this. So again, you know, you can email me, but go through the 5 trends again and sort of consider how your business almost sort of sits alongside them, and see, okay, this is what we need to focus on first. And again, it can be overwhelming, but definitely look at, okay, this is what we're lacking in the business. This is where we need to focus on first as well.
Yeah, and don't guess what to do. I mean, it sounds obvious, but engage with employees. You know, if you've got a budget, I guess use that budget wisely, and make sure you're offering solutions which are going to fit the needs of potentially a diverse workforce. So really think about that before you decide what to do.
Yeah, and then obviously finally, don't feel overwhelmed, like we've said. Or like I joke, it's hard enough looking after your own mental health, let alone all of your employees. Well, so don't feel like you have to do this alone. Don't feel like a Google search and being overwhelmed with, I need to do this, I need to do that, is what you need to do. There's plenty of sort of help out there and support out there. And equally, like I said, if you want to drop me an email, paul@everymind@work.com, whether it's just that you want to jump on a call to get some advice, or whether you're looking for some training or some support, whatever it is, just kind of reach out and we're there to help. And equally, these sessions, we run them, as we say, every last Wednesday of the month. So we're always trying to offer some more support as well. Guys, do you have any questions? There's lots of sort of feedback coming in, sort of saying thanks for a great session. Sorry, that was very good as well. The fact that we went from one to the other, it's almost like we rehearsed that, but we didn't put that out there. I mean, I've got to say so much, but that was quite good. We're getting more and more, like, as we keep saying, Holly and Phil as the yeah, I've got to praise us on that one. You know, you've got to give it a bit of kindness. So we've got, can your e-learning be uploaded onto other systems? Ian, drop us an email. There's possibility that it can. We can integrate it into different systems, but it's obviously just something that we might have to have a conversation around. Shirley says, thanks for this, great ideas on how things have changed now. Lockdown is so long term and we need to change our approach. Lucy says, thank you, this was insightful and informative. Ashley says, thank you for a brilliant session. Lucy says, great as ever. Caroline says, thank you, some ideas I think could really work. So guys, thank you so much for joining. Again, we do these sessions, as we say, every last Wednesday at 1 p.m. Next session, you know, always kind of looking at sort of what we're seeing in terms of the data and the trends, and just some valuable, hopefully, takeaways that you can take away from these sessions. Whether you want to like have a call with us and find out more about what we do, you know, that isn't the intent. If you can walk away with something from these sessions, then great. But if you do want that extra support, then we're there for you as well.
Yeah.
Anything to finish up on, Zoe?
No, I was just going to say, shout out to all the HR ninjas as well. We like to give a shout out to them. And if you've not joined the HR Ninja group on Facebook, check it out. It's a great supportive group run by Liz Henson. So yeah, if you're not a member of that, go and check it out.
Go Ninjas.
Go Ninjas. We love our HR Ninjas. It does.
Yeah.
And I think I'd, as an HR generalist myself as well, I'd just say, you know, you guys are doing a fantastic job. And I know probably a lot of you are probably generalists as well. And you sort of feel as though, I know I have over the years, you know, you're often expected to know everything about everything. And you know, you don't. And so you know, you're doing a fantastic job in what's been probably the most difficult year of your career, I imagine. So be kind to yourself, because yeah, you're doing a brilliant job. So yeah, keep up the good work, and you're not alone.
Actually, I'm pretty certain you might be able to just request to join, and if they say no, then drop me a line. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, I think they can. I think the main rule that sort of Liz is trying to avoid is that it becomes like a sales thing or a pitching thing. So it's meant to be like a supportive group around, you know, for generalist HR people and in different specialisms as well. But she just doesn't want it to turn into sort of like a sales thing whereby you're just sort of going on there and promoting, you know, your business. But yeah, as long as that's not what you want it for, it's I think she's pretty, you know, flexible with who joins.
Exactly. And I'm very grateful that I'm a ninja ambassador, right? So the mental health ambassador, the mental health guy, if you want to call me that. But yeah, it's an amazing community. So I'm glad there's some ninjas on this session today as well. Good stuff. All right, guys, we're going to sign off because I'm cautious of time. But thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Zoe, once again for your insights.
Guys. Thanks, guys.
And enjoy the rest of the day. Hopefully, we can all get to a 7 at least
by
the end of the week. Good stuff. All right, guys. Thank you.
Guys, bye.
All right, bye.